Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to embark on a journey like no other. Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast,
your go-to destination for a unique blend of recovery and discovery.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Mark. And in this podcast, we will endeavor to create a safe and uplifting space for our guests and listeners to share their stories with sincerity and a touch of humor.
Remember, we are not a Glum Lot. The Glum Lot Podcast is more than just a source of entertainment. It's a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, recovery is possible. Every story we share carries the power to inspire positive change.
So buckle up, get ready to listen, and join us in discovering the strength that lies within every individual's journey. This is the Glum Lot Podcast, where humor meets hope. Okay, Brett, welcome to episode number 89 of the Glum Lot Podcast.
We're almost getting to 10 away from the century mark.
Shh, quiet, don't jinx it. We may never make it.
That's true.
Hey, just want to remind the listeners to email us at theglumlotpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
And also, please join our glorious Facebook group, which is growing every day, the Glum Lot Podcast, and Facebook.
Yes.
So, hey, also, speaking of email...
I'm glad you're reading this, by the way.
Yes.
I would not be able to get through it.
Oh, come on now.
Yeah.
We got an email
I'm
from
sensitive.
we got an email from a listener, and I just thought this was really fantastic. It reads as follows. Hey, Mark and Brett, wanted to reach out to say thank you both. After 2 years of failed attempts, I got sober on October 22nd, 2024, with zero intention of ever going to AA. I attempted all of the other methods we have tried, and that's in quotations, and was also doing SMART and Refuge Recovery, both incredible programs that lack the community I need. But your podcast opened my eyes to AA, and I would have never stepped foot into my first room on 12/24/24 without you two. You guys have helped me both jumpstart and get a head start going into this journey. I love you for the guidance you have given me, and thank my higher power for bringing your podcast into my life. Keep on saving lives, my friends. Best, Freddie.
Man, that cuts me.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And that's, when we started this podcast 88 episodes ago, that was our intention, is to maybe make a difference, if only small, in the life of someone who is struggling like we once were.
Yeah, because we heard stories like this, right?
Yeah.
And so what got us in.
Boy, we said at that time, if we can only reach and make a difference to one person, that's enough reason to do this.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, Freddie, we're looking forward to having you on the show.
That's right. That's right. And since we've reached that one person, Brett, this is be the end of the podcast. We don't need to do it anymore.
Nope.
So, no, you want to keep going?
Oh yeah.
Try for two people.
I am now full.
Maybe we'll get two people.
I am full of vigor now.
Oh, vim and vigor.
Yeah.
Which remember Richard Brenner, the stand-up comedian?
Yes.
Maybe not. You're a little
I do.
younger than me, but. He used to talk about vim and vigor because he said if you look up the definition of vim in the dictionary, it's vigor.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. But anyways,
with
much vim and vigor, we'd like to welcome our next guest. How does our next guest come to us?
So our next guest came to us very highly recommended. I had put a chat out there looking for any suggestions because we know our listeners know people that have been, maybe influential or whatever. And so a few people recommended this person. And so I am very excited to have her here. So let's say hello to Danielle.
Danielle. Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast, Danielle.
Thank you for having me.
Hi.
And wow, Brett's really
I am excited.
He's full of vim and vigor.
I am.
And so we'd like to start with your sobriety date.
My sobriety date is July 17th, 2017.
Okay. Oh, that's a while ago. Good.
Yeah,
You got
sure
some years
is.
in, huh?
Yeah.
And we'd like to start at the very beginning when you first came under the influence of drugs and or alcohol and how old you were and what happened.
Yeah, what would it feel like all the details?
So I was about 13, and I left school and walked to a friend's house. And there were a bunch of other kids there, and I didn't have many friends. And they had some tequila, some weed, and everyone was kind of hanging out doing that. And I was still kind of afraid of it at the time, because you always hear drugs are
Don't
bad.
do drugs.
And the DARE program, all that stuff.
Oh, sure.
However, I guess I just was desperate to be accepted into a group. So I did some shots, and I got pretty sick, but I had made friends, and it kind of became a regular occurrence after that.
So how did it make you feel? Like, did you feel a certain way, and that's why you knew you had arrived at this?
I guess like I didn't know what to expect taking my first drink. So how I felt, I guess I figured was maybe normal, and the more I did it, maybe would. I don't know. I don't really remember any exact thoughts.
Yeah,
I
but
just
what you
remember,
knew is you belonged all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You had the friendship.
Right, it was working for you socially, at least, right?
Right. Like I didn't actually enjoy how I felt, but I wanted to continue to get like praise from others, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure.
I know for a lot of us, it's like the taste at first is just
Blech.
awful, but we do it because we want to be cool. And then we get the effect, and we're like, it's kind of worth it. I can put up with the taste.
Right.
And then you acquire the taste, and then you start liking it. And,
And we'll hear about that, I'm sure.
Downhill roll. So after that, did you continue to hang with these people and become the party girl?
I did, yes. Skipping school,
Oh.
started doing bad at all that stuff, and
Were your grades good before that?
they were. I mean, I wasn't like a straight A student, but
Right.
I wasn't failing, and I ended up dropping out actually my junior year to get my GED because there was no way I was gonna graduate.
Did your parents see a change in you they didn't like?
They did, yes, and I was a teenager, and so when it was brought up to me, I was a horrible teenager, especially to my mother. So I would just kind of yell at her when they would question me, like, what's going on? And they knew a couple of my friends, but those friends were really good at playing, like, the good friends when they were at my house.
I have 4 teenagers right now. And, I got pretty good kids, but...
Yeah.
But, when the kids come over, it's like they're so sweet.
The halos are intact.
And then when you find the vapes and the booze, it's like, wait a minute.
when you go to move their car in the
I thought
driveway.
they were sweet. So not unlike me and you and probably Brett.
Absolutely.
You got to put that front up. But so at any point during these early years, did you start drinking and or using drugs for effect?
I did enjoy the effect of drugs more than drinking.
Like what kind of drugs? Just weed or?
Yeah, and some Xanax here and there.
Okay.
I had a
Some
friend who had
bars.
it. Yeah, some like Adderall. I ended up doing like around 16. And I did fall in love with the drugs more, mostly because it was like, the taste of alcohol. Like I'm kind of dealing with it for the effect, but I get this effect from drugs. And
It's just a
I
pill.
actually enjoy it. Yeah.
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 So did you become a person who sought out drugs like that
Yes.
on a regular basis?
Not at that point,
Okay.
but eventually, like towards the end of high school, yes.
Yeah. So as we always talk about on this show, we find our people. So the friends we had before, and I know this is true for me, the friends I had before I started drinking and or using drugs changed pretty quickly. I started hanging with people that were doing what I was doing. I was more interested in that. And the friends who were not interested in that kind of fell off,
And I was like, they're nerds. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're too goody-goodies.
So I start hanging out with these people, and they become influential in how I think and my decision-making and how I'm growing. And I probably to them, too. And it's not going to a good place.
Right.
So what did your parents say when you said, I'm going to drop out and get a GED?
Well, my mom was actually for it because, like I said, I had skipped so much.
Your attendance was terrible?
It was terrible,
Yeah.
and there was no way that if I could make it through my senior year and graduate, I would have to do what they call a super senior and come back the following year for so many classes. And it was actually
she kind of knew that.
yeah, and
Super senior.
I don't got a super senior here.
And we're not talking to AARP.
No.
It's not that kind of super senior.
so it was actually her idea
Yeah,
for me to
something's
get
better
my
than nothing.
GED,
Yeah.
and then I could start college before everyone in my class graduates, so I could be ahead of the game.
Was it tough?
Interesting.
Was it tough to get in college with a GED?
No.
Okay,
No
so
kidding.
why
But I
not?
only tried getting into a community college,
Yeah.
OCC. I'm sorry,
That's all
Onondaga
right.
Community
Yeah.
College.
Right. And they're going to take you because you did graduate,
Right.
right, in some form. So it's a community college. Yeah, you're in.
Yeah, I wasn't getting into like.
What was your
Yale or
experience
anything
like at?
with a GED?
Right, have a GED, please. I'd like to go to Cambridge.
It's all my personality. Yeah.
So was your what was your experience like at community college?
I was there about 2 weeks.
Oh, so you stayed quite a while then for one of us.
I did some of that
and
at
you were
that
like,
same institution.
I'm out.
That's really when things took off for me, honestly.
Okay.
I met a whole new group of people doing way more extreme things. I only actually remember going to one class, and then I would just walk around campus, and people who were like in between classes, if I knew that. I actually got my tongue pierced in a hallway at that college.
That sounds
Badass.
medically sound.
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible.
Was
but
there
yeah, I was just
any
doing
ice at
crazy
least
stuff.
or anesthesia of any kind on your
No.
tongue?
Would you use a paperclip?
Shit.
No, he clamped it and did the whole thing.
Oh,
Oh,
brought
nice
the
guy.
tools with him.
Yeah.
Was this like a boyfriend or
No,
just
just-
some rando?
Yeah. That I
Oh.
had literally probably met the week before.
Oh man, Milo's chiming in again.
Yes.
You know,
it's been a while.
It has.
He's been a pretty good boy.
Well, he's been going to a lot of meetings.
But I
He's
think, you know,
on a good spiritual ground.
it bothered me to hear about a tongue piercing in the hall, so maybe he's,
Maybe it
he's
bothered
dealing
you,
with
too.
it too.
Well, it's probably the least harmful of shit that we do when we're under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Actually, so how do things progress in your life from this point on? You drop out of college.
Yes.
Right? Do you get a full-time job or?
No.
Oh,
Absolutely
nice.
not. No, I was too good for that. My parents were still letting me live at home.
Mm-hmm.
I had, access to a car and didn't have to worry about anything. And I guess I just always felt like I had more time to grow up later. But this was my time to be adventurous.
Live.
I guess.
Do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And what were some of those adventures?
Well, so I had dropped out of school and I had met a guy who was actually a few years older than me. And then that's how I was actually first introduced to cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that, and I was actually kind of scared to do that at first because before, it's funny to think about now, but everything else was like, they were like little drugs, like down
Right.
at the
But-
bottom
yeah.
there.
I've seen this on TV.
Those things are prescribed.
Right.
They gotta
Yeah,
be good.
not as
I
bad.
don't want to be part of a drug cartel.
Right.
But like cocaine, like that was
That was a hard drug to you.
Yes, it was. And I mean, I really don't remember what made me want to do it, but I did. And I think it was just because of the guy I was with.
Yeah, man.
Just
Yeah.
going back to being accepted. And
Right. If he's
by
doing it,
people.
I'm doing it.
Right.
Right. And did you fall in love with that?
Yes.
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 Unequivocally.
Quite conviction there.
And so going forward from that first time, what was your usage of cocaine like?
Only on the weekends. And then by the time I was 19, though, I had found like pain pills, and that started also just weekends, partying with him and his friends because he had a job. And on the weekends, we would all get together, do drugs, and then when I had found pain pills, it was like, oh, we can get it on Wednesday now.
Are you talking like opiates, like Oxy
Yes,
or whatever?
yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then it became like, 2 or 3 times a week, and
Were those
eventually it
used
was
to
all the time.
counter effect the cocaine, or just
Just more stuff to do.
more stuff to do? Okay,
Yep,
yeah.
and I enjoyed it more. So actually, my
Oh.
cocaine usage kind of went
Dropped
down a little bit. Yeah, because I enjoyed the effects of the opiates more.
Were you just ingesting them, or did you start scraping them and snorting them? And
I was snorting them off the bat because I had already snorted the cocaine. So
Okay.
it was like, the pain
You were
pills
comfortable with that?
already. Yes,
at any point did you start shooting?
yes. Before I turned 20.
Okay. So did you move to heroin?
Yes.
Because it was cheaper.
Yeah.
It was more
Cheaper,
plentiful.
lasts
it was
longer,
better.
better,
Yeah.
all that.
We hear that
Yep.
from a lot of people.
Yep,
That
a lot.
whole, right now there's a lot of documentaries out about the Sackler family and their spread of, oxys and any kind of opiate pills and stuff. And everybody seems to do the same thing. It's hard to get them. They're very expensive. You got to shave them down with a pipe clamp apparently and snort them or shoot them or whatever you want to do. And all of a sudden, boom, heroin. It's really cheap.
Yep.
It's all over the place. You can buy a bunch of it at once. And before you know it, you're shooting it and you can't not shoot it.
Right.
Is that kind of what happened with you?
Yes.
Does
Very fast.
does alcohol play into this at all or no?
My alcoholism, absolutely.
Okay, so the whole time you're still drinking.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
a constant.
Not like daily, but yes, because it's part of that lifestyle,
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
group,
And so are you still living at home with your parents?
No.
Oh, so you moved in with this guy?
Yes.
Of course. and is he
Come on,
shooting
Mark.
I
heroin?
couldn't get away with any of that stuff at my parents' house, please.
Yeah.
Is he shooting heroin too?
Yes.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's when it gets really bad. And now you're into this whole crew of people who are using, right?
Yes.
What'd you guys do? Like, what'd you do during this? Or did you just get in there and just sit together and do this stuff? What was the thing that brought you together?
I don't recall much. I know we would drive around a lot. I had this buddy, Woody, and he would drive around all the time, and I was just high in the back
Riding
seat
around.
and listening to music. And
Okay.
Just having people around me.
Yeah, okay.
It was just a hangout.
Yes.
Let's catch the ultimate buzz and just hang out and enjoy it together.
Yes.
Drive around.
Did you have at this time? Did you have the effects of addiction? Like you knew,
Like
when you,
physical?
Yeah, like you could feel. Okay, I need it.
Oh, yeah, I did start to
Pretty quick,
feel,
right?
Yes, like within a couple weeks.
So how many? Did you buy heroin in like little bags? Mm-hmm. How many bags were you shooting a day?
At this time in the beginning,
Yeah.
not even a whole bag.
Okay, so you built up tolerance and
Yes,
the
because
whole
I was
nine, right?
the first time I wanted to do heroin because I knew it was cheaper, it would be better.
Did you snort it first?
Yes, I did.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't start shooting until I was already doing heroin.
Was that a line you said, I'll never do that?
Yes.
God, everybody has the same experience with that shit.
Yeah.
It's like,
Fear
well,
of
I'm not
needles.
shooting it.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then that ends up being a way to, quicker way to get there, right?
Yep.
So during this time, are you working? How are you getting money?
The guy I'm with.
Okay, so he still has a job?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Your life's pretty crazy. Your parents ever say, what are you into? Like, what happened to you?
I really avoided them at all
I was going to
costs.
say, you're probably not even around.
Yeah, and I was so horrible to them at this point that I think because I was also 19, they were kind of like, she's got to do what she's got to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything's their fault, of course,
That's what I thought, yes.
Yeah.
They were always on me. I had
Yes,
to, on my ass, I had to
So
get out.
you get into this at 19. How long does it last? This period of your life where you're just using and...
When I got
Driving
sober,
around.
I was 26.
Okay, so you went a while.
Yeah, you gotta-
Any repercussions in that
yeah.
5 years? Can you tell us a little bit about some of the more interesting ones that may have proven to be wake-up calls a little bit?
Well, I had many stays in jail.
Okay. For possession?
Yep, possession and petty larceny.
Yeah.
I obviously started stealing to support my habit.
Yep.
So going to jail, going to rehab, bouncing around from place to place. I did eventually end up breaking up with that guy. Or I'm sorry, he broke up with me, I should say.
Let's make
Let
it
me
clear.
correct that.
Yes.
Yeah, he's going to hear this and he's going to be mad. He's going to set the story straight.
So then I was
so-
like couch hopping and
Yeah, so let me ask you this. You're going to jail. You're stealing to support your habit. You know something's fucked up, right?
Oh.
I mean, even though you're not going to admit that you need help or you want to stop, you got to be thinking, there's something wrong with this.
honestly, I feel like I was blind to it for a while. Like I could stop if I wanted to,
Okay,
but I
so
didn't
the denial
want
was
to.
strong. You thought you
Yeah.
were managing it okay.
Yeah,
Everybody goes to jail a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
managing it fine. I'm out now, right?
right.
At what point did that change?
Not until like my last 2 or 3 years that I was out there was when it was the worst. That was the hardest.
So, did the arrest and the jail time get longer and more? Did you find yourself in bad situations?
I did,
Yeah.
yeah. And, it wasn't really so much the going to jail for longer at that point. It was more like I was starting to see, like, I wasn't an asshole teenager anymore. So I was starting to see how, like, I was blackmailing my mom, making her cry. I would be sick, and I was just over the lifestyle of every day having to figure out how I'm going to get right, and then getting right, and then telling myself I'm never going to do it again, and then the next day literally doing the same thing.
This sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, there's
The insanity's kicking in.
yeah,
Yes.
and that whole the glamour of the lifestyle wears off, and you're like, this lifestyle is
And all of a sudden
actually
we're
pretty
maturing a little bit.
torturous.
Yeah.
But during this time, you had stints in rehab, and you were evaluated, right, for drugs and alcohol, and they're telling you got a problem,
Right.
and you're going to rehab, and they're telling you, hey, this is the way to get clean, but you don't take that help.
No, I was only going to rehab to not go to jail.
Yeah. And so in your mind, are you like, this is for people that, are bad. This is really not that bad.
Yeah, the older people that were in there,
Yeah.
that's when I could come back, I guess.
Right. And then you're like, God, I am one of those older people now. What am I going to do now?
Did you have multiple stints at rehab?
3.
3 of them. Mm-hmm. What was it like every time you opened the doors?
The first one, I had a lot of fun there, actually. But this was before my habit was really bad. I had gotten arrested fairly early into my heroin use. I was 19 still. And, I went in there and I was like a class
Social.
clown. Yeah. And, I was never like that before, but everybody loved me. And, my counselor was great, too. And, when I left there, I did tell myself that, I didn't have to go back to that. Mm-hmm. But I guess I didn't realize that, once I started, it would be just off to the races again versus, I can control it. I didn't understand the powerlessness at that point.
When you're in that rehab, so you had to go through some kind of weaning off, right? Some kind of detoxing. And then you're clean for those 28 days or whatever it was. Do you ever think, when you're in there, I'm gonna stay clean? Did you tell yourself that, or were you like, I'm not even going to fool well, as soon as I get out of here, I'm using?
Yeah. That was,
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It was like, when I get out of here, I'm definitely not going to any meetings or any of the outpatients. I wasn't going to do any of that. Yeah. My plan was to, my parents will probably take me back home, or I can go stay at this friend's house and then just kind of see what happens. But I always went back to the same
So you had
crowd.
no intention of sobriety?
No.
Okay. And so as you go, and then you go back the second time. Mm-hmm. You go back to the same rehab?
No.
Okay. We're going to do something different this time. But still the same thing. You're not ready.
Not
right?
ready.
How about the third time?
The third time I was ready.
And why were you ready the third time? What happened? Do you remember? Can you put it into words as to what kind of a change was in your life?
I was just graced with that desperation. That I can't even.
Yeah.
I like to say this example, and it's silly, but this is where I was at right before I got clean. I was so desperate for my life to be different. I was homeless at this time, living under a bridge, and I looked up in the sky, and I would see a star, and I would do that, starlight, star bright, and I'd make a wish on a freaking star,
amazing,
dumb, but I was that
Not
desperate.
dumb.
I would sob and do that, and just wish that I would wake up the next day, be, 17 again, and have a do-over.
Wow.
I never once thought to pick myself up from where I was and get better. It was just I have to go back. Basically, I was
right. So you saw no way out at the present moment.
Right.
I would have to go back in time and do it right.
Yes.
But something happened.
Yeah. So I went to the library because they had free Wi-Fi. I had a phone, but I didn't have service. So you get those texting apps. You get Wi-Fi. You can use them. And I had a missed call from a detox, and I had called them many times in my desperate, when I didn't get enough money, I'm really sick still, I need help, and I'd call them, and then they're not taking you right away. So then when they call you in a week, I'm good now.
Yeah.
I'm good. I don't need that.
Yeah.
And
who is this?
Right. But they had called me and left a voicemail, and I actually didn't remember calling them anytime soon, and I didn't plan this. I just said okay, and I went.
Wow.
So you go to this detox, and this time you're more beat down. Maybe you're at a bottom, right? Somewhat of a bottom, because at least you want to go.
Right.
And your attitude's a little different. So what happens from there after you detox?
I had a warrant, so I turned myself in.
Okay.
I sat in jail for not even a week before I had a bed at rehab, and he let me go. And I actually wasn't expecting that to happen.
So when you go in front of the judge, and you've got this list of priors and repeat offender and rehabs didn't work, how do you get the court system to say, give me another chance? Do you have to basically ask them?
I didn't ask them, no. I was expecting to get sentenced.
And they said, we're going to give you another shot at rehab?
Yeah, my lawyer had just said, well, she does have an appointment set up for a bed on this date. And he was like, okay, release her. She
Wow.
can go.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, I think, they don't want to spend the money to incarcerate someone
Yeah.
if they can have the system pay for a rehab.
Right.
That's probably part of it. But so you go to this rehab, and is it a brand new rehab too, or is it one of the ones you went to before?
Nope, it's a new one.
Okay. You go to this rehab, and the only thing probably different at this point is you. Mm-hmm. You're you got that little bit of gift of desperation, right?
Yep.
So do you pour yourself into this experience?
So I think what helped me the most is that, all those other times I went in like, I don't have a problem, or maybe I do have a problem, but it's not that big a deal. I don't have to take care of it right now.
Right.
And these are all the things I'm going to do when I get out. Whereas this time when I went in, I had no plan. I was literally just doing what they told me to do.
What's interesting is that it sounds like the first few times you went, you were in the middle of the first step. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I got a little bit of a problem, but it's manageable. And you finally reached the point where the second half of the first step, and my life is unmanageable, right?
And then you surrendered.
And then you thought, God, I can't do this alone. If I could have done it, I would have done it. I can't do it. So I need somebody to tell me how to do this. And you go to rehab, and you put yourself into this program, and your mind is open. And do you start absorbing the way out pretty quickly?
No, really. I was kind of in a fog, just kind of like I said, going through the motions. I had been recommended to go to like halfway houses and stuff before, and I was always against that. I'm not doing that.
The bridge
you
was
can't
much
make me do
better.
that.
Right.
Just saying.
Yeah, I got a warm
okay?
bridge to look forward to.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean,
It's the craziness.
we have interviewed numbers of people who have been through
Yeah.
multiple rehabs, and they just weren't ready. And most of it is because there wasn't enough pain yet.
Right.
So you're there, and you go to this rehab, and how long is your stay there?
Like 3 weeks, 21 days, I think.
Okay, so but at the end of the 21 days, what kind of decisions are you making? What are you going to do different?
They recommended a halfway house, and I said, okay.
Okay.
I went to they sent me to a halfway house in a town like 45 minutes to where I'm from. And it's funny because I had actually been to AA meetings out there before from my second rehab, which was also in a similar area, and they did step-down meetings, so they would take residents of the rehab and take them to meetings.
To the meetings, yeah.
Yes. And so I had been to those when I was in rehab, and when I had gotten out of rehab, I continued to go, but not change anything about my life. I just enjoyed that people were accepting of me. Again, that's what, a lot of that goes back to.
So do you mean that you went to the meetings, but you didn't stop using?
Right.
Okay, yeah. But this time, you go to the halfway house, and you start attending meetings on the regular?
Yep, and I had remembered a lot of these people. There were a lot of the same people there, even though this was years later.
Yeah.
One guy, actually, one older gentleman who, I'm still really close with, he, looked at me and he said, wow, I've been praying for you. And he gave me a hug, and he remembered my name.
Holy shit. Yeah, that makes a difference, doesn't
sure
It does.
Yeah. It becomes like family, During this whole ordeal, what is your relationship like with your parents?
I don't have it.
Okay.
It's gone.
Okay. So they wrote you off.
Yes.
And you wrote them off, and that was the end of that.
They wrote me off. Yes.
Okay. All right. Since you've been clean, has there been any movement on that?
Yes.
Great. I want to hear about that because that's part of the rewards, isn't it?
Right.
So you get into these meetings, you get a sponsor,
Yes.
and you start working the steps.
Yep.
Your life starts changing.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in the halfway house still, it was wintertime, and, we had to, walk across the street to smoke. We couldn't smoke, on the property. So I'm smoking a cigarette, and it's the last one of the night, and I'm looking up at the street light, and I'm seeing, the snowflakes, and the snow is, blowing,
Yeah.
fast.
Sideways, yeah.
But when I look up in the light, it's, slowly passing by the light, and I just remember thinking that was the coolest thing, and how I never really noticed things like that before. I was always in a rush, and my mind was always on everything else. I never was in the moment. And I just remember that was the moment when I said, wow, I haven't thought about a drink or a drug in a month.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a spiritual experience,
Yeah.
And same thing with, you looked up at the star. What I did was I was drunk one night and I was in the darkest place and I just looked up at the ceiling and I just said out loud, I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. But that feeling of desperation and that feeling of asking something of something you know nothing about was my way of reaching out to a higher power. And the next day I went to my first meeting. And it sounds like the same kind of thing happened to you, and the same thing happens to a lot of us, I think. And we don't even think, is this a spiritual connection? Because our higher power is doing for us what we can't do, getting us motivated to, and for most people, they never get there. Right. And it ends up killing them, or they live a miserable another 10 years or whatever. Right. So you're out and you're having some success and you're having these spiritual experiences, right? Mm-hmm. What happens when it's time to leave the halfway house?
I was using the bathroom at the halfway house, and I realized that when I had to leave, I would have to buy my own toilet paper now, and I had a panic attack. Oh my God, I've never had to take care of myself like that before.
I've got to grow up.
Yeah. And I was
Reality smacks you in the face when you're getting out of there.
Yes, I begged to stay, and I was mad that they wouldn't keep me, but it was a 90-day program, and I was there for like 7 months.
Oh, shit.
Oh, well, I guess they did.
So you had
help you out there.
Your safe space was pretty solid.
So how'd you do it?
So
how'd you get the toilet paper?
Went to the store and bought it eventually. I found out that you could do that.
Well, it's funny because there's this guy that goes to AA, and he always tells us to get a job. And I used to hate that. Like, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
But man, he was right. I had to get a job.
No shit.
Yes. And, it's really funny because before I'm leaving the halfway house, I tried setting up public housing. And I went through the whole thing, and they denied me because I have a prior weapons charge, and they don't appreciate that when they're, putting someone in a community, obviously. Yeah. So I got denied that, and I was so upset. I didn't know how I was going to make it. And that's when, that guy, he was like, get a job. And I actually ended up getting 2 jobs, and I found an apartment, and I moved in. And I learned I'm way more capable than I thought.
We become self-supporting, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
useful.
That, after you've been through what you've been through, I imagine that self-doubt was pretty strong.
Yes.
And
maybe some fear in it.
Boy, getting a job, that's such a great thing, because you find out that all you got to do is show up and do your job, and you can get by in this world.
Right.
And so, it was time to grow up, and boy, isn't it great that you can grow up with a design for living through the steps that can guide you to do the right things for the right reasons.
With the support of the fellowship along the way.
Yes.
And then things start going right. You're like, it's almost like you're looking from the outside, looking at yourself going, holy shit.
What took so long?
Look at me.
Yeah, of course.
People always told me, they were like, if you continue to do the next right thing and put one foot in front of the other, you will be okay. And I had a really hard time believing that, but that has been my experience this, last 7.5 years.
Yeah, there's people in the rooms that'll say we regain power, right? Even though we were powerless over something, we slowly regain power, and it's a different one.
Right.
Right.
But let me ask you about this. In your early sobriety, did people, places, and things get in the way, maybe try to lure you back?
No, because I was in a new city. I did not go back.
So you were removed from that stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
And by the time that I had gone into detox and jailed and rehab that last time, the only person that I had was this one guy, and we were just running partners. Like, we worked well together.
Yeah.
I didn't actually have anybody else. I had no other friends. Everybody who I partied with in high school and they were accepting of me then, they grew up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe most of them did. I don't know. But I lost touch with all those people.
Okay.
And I was just left with one person that I ran with, and I was really alone.
Yeah.
What was your experience with step 2 and 3 in early sobriety?
So I would go to this morning meeting out here, and I would always tell people, like, I can't do this 3rd step until, like, I know what God is. I grew up in a religious home, and I felt like I had to come to believe that, even though I didn't. So what ended up happening was my sponsor was a woman who was not much older than me, and she had the same history as me, and she had like 18 months at that time.
Which is an eternity. Right?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And she was, having fun, like not miserable. And that was amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so step 1 was easy at this point, right? So step 2, she basically said, do you believe you're an alcoholic? And I said, yes. And she said, do you believe that I'm an alcoholic? And I said, yes. And then she had asked me, do you believe that I suffered the same obsessions and compulsions as you, and that today I live a free life? And I said, yes. And she said, okay, do you want to do what I did? And I said, yes. And she said, okay, we're going to do your 4th step. And she made it very simple for me.
Huh.
Okay. How did you come to grips with a 3rd step then? Did you, I know for a lot of us it's just an opening of our mind.
Right.
It sounds like you knew it was important too.
Right. So she helped me realize that I didn't really have to know my higher power at this point.
Excellent.
All I needed to do was know that I don't have an answer, and I'm going to follow somebody else's lead, people who have done this before me. So the higher power at that point was
the
program, the group, the fellowship, my sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to do what they tell me to do.
Awesome. And then you did your 4th and 5th.
Yep.
Cleansing?
Yes. Yeah, I was not afraid of it. I know a lot of people say they are afraid of it. I was ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're ready to dump that shit right out, right?
Yep, I was
That's
ready.
That's awesome. Can you tell us about the relationship with your parents?
So, first, my aunt had reached out to me when she found out I was in a halfway house. And she was the only family I had in my life the first, year and a half I got sober. And then eventually talk went to one of my brothers, which eventually went to my other brother, which went to my parents. And then we started, they came out to me and we went out to dinner. And then they dropped me off and that was it. It was very, very small steps.
Yes.
Yeah, they were checking a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
waiting for that shoe to drop.
Yeah.
I had, this throughout my entire, using, I had only had 4 months clean on my own, and it was a struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't easy.
So, a lot of us that come into the program, we're like, hey, I'm clean now. And they're like, are you though?
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens, right?
Yeah, and every other time that I got out of jail, rehab, whatever, I would run to my parents' house.
You were
right?
better.
I'm here, take me back, love me, and really what it was is manipulating, because I knew that they supported me. I didn't have to worry about responsibilities because they would take care of me. And then it was no. And then this time around, my sponsor was like, you don't talk to them. She was like, you don't reach out. Yeah, don't reach out to them. They deserve a recovery from you. And if it's meant to be, it'll be. And I listened.
Mm-hmm. So when you made amends, did you talk to them directly to make amends?
Yes.
Was that rough?
Yes, it was. A lot of crying.
Oh, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you have a good relationship with them now?
Yes.
That is, man, that's such
Thank God.
Yeah. And your brothers?
Yes. And it's funny, too, because when I first came into the program this last time around, because I wasn't super well, obviously, when I came in. I was willing and open, but I wasn't well. So my biggest resentment was my dad, because he was the one who was like, nobody can talk to her. Nobody talk to Danielle. She is dead to us. He was he was tough about it. He was like, this is it. And so he was the person I was the most resentful towards. And today, I'm the closest to him.
Yeah. How about that?
Wow. Those are, you talk about the promises.
Right.
And the repair that goes on in this program. And some people, myself included, which I've said about 5 times so far this podcast, when I first came in and looked at those steps, I was like, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me. I don't want to, I'm not doing that. I don't have to make amends to anybody. I haven't done anything wrong. I only hurt myself. You know what I mean? That kind of shit. And they work through the steps at a pace that's right for you, and you get there.
Yeah.
And then you look back and you're like, God,
those promises are true.
what was I doing? How fucking lost was I?
And when did I really change? That's the other thing that was striking to me,
Yeah.
right? That psychic change that happens, a complete change in our thinking, and all of a sudden we're a much different person.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only thinking about ourselves, but helping others. Have you
Yep.
done any of that, sponsoring?
I have had very few sponsees and not for long. Most of my service is in intergroup rides to meetings. I've done the AA phone. I've brought people from like a rehabilitation center that want to go to outside meetings, pick them up, sign them out, bring them to meetings. Today, my service work is I'm the treasurer of intergroup, and
Awesome.
that's really all I'm able to do at this time. Blessings of the program, right? I have 2 small children now. I'm in nursing school. There's a lot going on, so
Sure.
that's basically what I do right now.
Yeah.
I have like a group chat with my friends in the fellowship that I'm really close with, my girlfriends, and I'm always there if someone needs to reach out.
Sure.
But I'm not like going to meetings outside cities and
You mean you
bringing
don't have to go to
carfuls of
16
people.
meetings a day now?
Right, I'm not able to, unfortunately.
Now, was your experience in AA or NA or both?
AA.
Okay. You never went to NA?
I went to a couple, but where I'm from, they're not very
Yeah.
successful.
Did you bring up the fact that you're there mostly for drugs, or do you just kind of keep it as, I'm just here to recover?
So at first
There's probably a little correction there at one point.
right. So there was this gentleman, because before I was like, oh, well, I did drugs. I don't belong here. And he was like, what do you think? You're fucking special?
Addiction,
Finally, she swore.
Yeah, thank God you broke the ice. Thank fucking God. you finally-
Jesus, I've been holding on to that shit forever.
All right, so
So he told me about the ism, the I self
Yeah.
me. And when I told him that drugs were a bigger problem, he asked me if I could remember my last drink. And it's funny, actually, because I had that 4 months clean, and my brother got married. And I drank at his wedding, and I blacked out. I was pretty promiscuous, and started going back to, I went back to dope within days.
Yeah, sure.
yeah, so that's kind of the way this whole thing works usually is if we get away from it, alcohol lowers our inhibitions. We start doing stupid shit. Before
opens
you
the
know
gates.
it, it'd be really good right now.
Yeah.
Some heroin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
remember
want to
that with
fill that
Coke.
void, you
'Cause
know?
I don't think I ever really went out.
A
and
little
just-
was just never
I don't
enough.
think I ever went out and just got Coke.
Right.
It was always around drinking.
Yeah.
You know what'd be really good right now?
Amp it
Grab a
up.
Coke. Yeah.
Right. Ay.
Yeah, so I also noticed you're wearing a fish T-shirt, and that we talked a little bit before, and you're into the jam band scene.
Yeah.
We've had Matt and a whole bunch of people that
Benji
were
and
into
we've
yellow
had
the
quite a
yellow
few-
balloon groups
I
we
think
like to talk about.
4 in total.
Yeah, I've been sober for a really long time. And I just found out about yellow balloon groups like 6 months ago. That's how unhip I am. But I just think it's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
So for those listeners who don't know, yellow balloon groups set up a table at concerts,
Yeah.
also now at NFL games, and they have yellow balloons, and they give out stickers that say one show at a time, and that's how you identify yourself as being in recovery, and yet they check on each other. At set break, they get together and they have a meeting. And it's a real community
And they
of
actually
sober.
enjoy the show.
Yeah, they
Yes.
enjoy the show as sober people.
Yeah.
And we've heard stories from people that have gotten clean as a result of a yellow balloon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yellow balloon experience. So,
Oh, yeah.
Now, do you have experience with these yellow balloon groups?
So yeah, but only after I had already been sober a couple years.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I had known about them, but was never really interested until I started getting, I was really involved
Yeah.
in the program, continuing to go to fish shows. Obviously, it's a, life choice.
But you
And-
didn't, you don't have to stay away from them now,
Right.
And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to avoid that anymore. You got your people.
Yeah, and they got little stickers too that say "Friends of Trey A."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, does it enhance your experience at a show when you experience the yellow balloon group part of it? Like you go to a show, right? There's
Yeah.
a lot of drugs.
Oh yes.
A lot of booze.
Oh, everywhere. People
fucked
are obnoxious.
up. That's what it's about. For
Right.
the majority of people there, that's what it's about.
Right.
Get fucked up and just groove, right? So you're there. You're the outlier. I'm not fucked up, but I'm in a groove.
That's right.
And so I've got this tool here. And then you meet up with these people. You make friendships.
Oh yeah.
Lasting.
Oh yeah. meet up at all the shows. I got a bunch of friends, and I'll be like, what shows? Like, Summer Tour was just announced, and I was like, I'm doing Pittsburgh and Philly.
Nice.
What are you doing? And, yeah, everyone will say where they're going. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Come on, man.
That is
That's
pretty
so
cool.
good.
It is, yeah. We were just talking before about the NFL games, and I know from going in our area to Buffalo Bills games, there's plenty of people that are just so drunk.
Oh, my God.
It's like, it makes it unpleasant.
I got puked on the first time I went to the game.
Yeah, and I was reticent to bring my teenage son to a game because I'm like, this is like fucking Beirut.
Barbaric.
Yeah,
Beirut. Yeah, that's
it's
a good way to put
burning fires, blown out cars.
We still
drunk
love you, Bills
people.
Mafia.
Yeah, but they've cleaned it up, pretty good actually. But it is really interesting that these sober sections. There's a yellow section at the Green Bay games, and the yellow section is the sober section. Yeah. I think that's pretty cool. So
and it's a movement that's starting to happen in a lot more places too.
Right.
So
and
it's pretty cool.
You know what I've heard about lately, and I don't know about this because I've never really firsthand seen this, but apparently going out for young people now, there's like a sober movement where they're going out and getting
Mocktail bars.
Mocktail bars, and people just aren't into getting hammered anymore.
Yeah, there's whole sections near the beer and wine aisles in grocery stores now that carry this stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, not something I'm a part of, but I see that and hear about it. I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you've sponsored people, a very few people for a very short period of time. You had never had anybody that latched on and stuck around.
I have not.
It is a great fact.
Check
this out.
I've had 5 sponsees die while I'm sponsoring them. So hey, you haven't killed anybody yet? You're doing better than me. No, but I've had my successes too.
Sure have.
But don't feel like just because it hasn't happened that it's not going to happen, because it will.
You got a lot of life left.
You got a lot to offer someone.
Yep.
Oh,
heck
and you know how desperate you are when you come in and how much help you do need. So
that's right.
Somebody will need.
And you're providing that help right now.
Right.
Right.
Yes, Brett. Yes.
Hey, I'm deep, man.
He is. That guy's deep. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with our audience about your recovery, in your experience?
Words of encouragement.
I mean, I would just say, there's someone who, in the meetings I go to, he says, if you're new and you have a plan, come tell me what it is after the meeting so I could fucking laugh at you. Don't make a plan.
Right. Don't figure it out for yourself.
Right.
Just
so I can
go
laugh
with
at
the
you.
flow, one foot in front of the other.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
good.
excellent.
And that's part of the surrender.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
surrender.
going to use that on all of my
surrender
sponsees now.
Surrender your pseudo intelligence and your ego, because it's gonna be in your way.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So keep it simple. So
That's right.
Well, we'd like to thank you for your time and coming on the podcast. Your story was uplifting.
Yes, for sure.
And if anybody could see you, they would see what looks like a very happy young person.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
That's fantastic.
Again.
Yeah.
Yep. From the ashes.
Until next time on the Glum Lot Podcast, I'm Mark.
I'm Brett.
Danielle.
As we wrap up another episode of the Glum Lot Podcast, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you who tuned in today. Navigating the path to recovery from alcohol and other substances is a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and self-discovery. Remember, we're not affiliated with Alcoholics Anonymous, but we're here to provide a safe space for open conversations about the complexities of recovery. Your stories, courage, and resilience inspire us and our listeners alike. If you or someone you know is on the transformative journey, know that you're not alone. Join us next time as we continue to explore the diverse facets of recovery. Until then, stay strong, stay connected, and remember that each day is a step towards a brighter, sober tomorrow. Thank you for being part of the Glum Lot community.